Okay, we'll start by loading in the whiskey dataset and importing Brunel so we can work with it and taking a look at the fields that are in the data. Now the first graph we might want to try is a heat map of using the categories of whiskeys by the countries that they're produced in. You can get this syntax from our website if you want to get started. So let's go ahead and execute that, take a look at it. We can see the counts for the individual areas. Now, next what we might want to do is filter this by the alcoholic beverage content. It's very simple to do, adding a filter statement, and then we can slide the slider and see high values of alcoholic beverage content and low values. Now, next what we might want to do is instead of filtering it that way, we might want to juxtapose this graph with a second graph. So how we do that is we'll add a second graph described by the Brunel. And in this case, what we'll do is we'll look at a line where we're looking at the ratings, a relationship between the ratings by the prices of the individual whiskeys. And let's smooth that so we can sort of see more about the trend. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and just add in the underlying data points to that graph as well. And the last thing that we'll need is a little bit more space. So let's make the whole width a little bit wider so we can have some room to have one on the left and one on the right. Okay, go ahead and execute that. Notice Brunel has automatically scaled the data on the y-axis to make it easier to see the patterns, but we can go ahead and change that to be a linear scale if we want, just by adding linear onto the y-axis. What we'd like to do here is connect these graphs so that when I click on a cell in the heat map, I can see the resulting plot on the right for the data that's in that cell. So to go ahead and do that, we'll add an interaction onto the heat map saying that when there's a selection made in that graph, and then we'll have the other graphs respond by saying there's an interaction, and we're going to filter the content of these graphs, the points and the lines, to what had been selected. Let's go ahead and execute that. And now you can see when I click on a cell, and on a particular cell on the heat map, I can see the data for just that cell on the right now. Now the last thing I might want to do is actually see some of those outliers, and what those values are is what I can do is just simply add on a tooltip so that I can reveal those values when I mouse over them. And now when I go back and click on a cell and move the mouse over a point, I can see the individual brands of the whiskeys in this case. And lastly, we'll show things get interesting when you combine what you can do with Brunel with the statistical and machine learning capabilities of Python. So for example, using scikit-learn here, we can build a decision tree model to try to predict what the price would be given the age, rating, and alcoholic beverage content of a whiskey. And then what we can do is we can plot the residuals of that and take a look at how well our predictions are doing or how well our model's doing. And of course include a tooltip so we can see what the actual values were.